Having the right equipment and supplies is important to doing a job well and efficiently. If we don't have the right things, we often run into problems. It takes longer than it should, etc. And this is true for sampling manures and for calibration of manure application equipment. To make this job easier for producers, what we have done is assembled kits and sets of equipment and supplies for these purposes. We have 20 of these kits prepared. They've been distributed throughout the state, and they're in the extension educators' offices in many cases. And the idea of these kits is that they be easily available to producers and consultants who may wish to use them for sampling manures or for calibration of their equipment. So in these kits we have a number of different things. There's equipment for sampling, there's equipment for calibration. For sampling, first of all, we have a device for sampling from open lagoons, pits, and holding ponds. Another device that we have is for sampling underfloor pits, with the idea that it fits between the slots. You stick it in and you can pull out a sample quite easily. For solid manures, there are a number of things. One is an auger that can be used to drill into the side of a manure pile or a compost windrow and pull out samples from deeper into the pile. There is also a scoop that can be used for grabbing samples from the applicator before taking it to the field. There are sampling bottles, or sample bottles I should say, for submitting samples. The bottles you would use, of course, for the liquid and slurry samples. You fill them to 1 or 2 inches of the top and mail them off. If there's going to be some delay, you might refrigerate them for some time. There are Ziploc bags for the solids. For both the solid manure in the Ziploc bag as well as the samples, it's good to have double protection. So put your sampling bottles in one of these Ziploc bags, and also your first Ziploc bag you put into a second one, so you have double layers. There are gloves in the kit to help make the job cleaner for yourselves. We've included an electrical conductivity meter. The electrical conductivity meter, or the EC meter, is used to determine how much salt you have in your liquid manures. And this is important to know so that you don't damage a growing crop when you apply the liquid through a center pivot. And with the EC meter, there's deionized water that you use for rinsing before and after doing your test. There's a calibration solution, which will probably be most used by the educator, the extension educator, to make sure the EC meter is working right. And there are some wipes for cleaning it. In the kit, we also have a spray bottle of Clorox. Again, we would like to make the work as clean as possible for you, but also so that you can easily return the equipment clean after you're finished using it. We have to remember that this equipment is stored in extension offices, and it should be nice and clean when it's returned. For sampling in the field, we have a soil probe for taking soil samples, both surface soil samples as well as deeper samples for soil nitrate. And there's a shears for taking stock samples for the post-harvest stock nitrate test. And with the shears are paper bags that you can put your stock segments in and submit it to the lab. For calibration of application equipment, there are a number of pieces of equipment. An important one is the measuring wheel. So if you need to measure off a length of the field for the sake of your calibration, this wheel makes it easy to do. There are also flags to mark the beginning and the end of the application strip, and maybe the width of the application strip. Another procedure for calibrating equipment, application equipment, that is for solid manures, is to use plastic sheets, where you put plastic sheets on the ground and they catch the manure. So there are a number of these in the kit, and each of these are about 22 square feet in size. There are plastic buckets for handling the manure after you collect it on the sheets. And then a balance, an electronic balance with a readout for weighing the manure that you would collect. For liquid manures that you would put through a pivot, you may want to calibrate your pivot, both for the uniformity of application as well as for the rate of application. And for this we have 8 rain gauges. The idea is you would set these rain gauges up probably in the access road because you don't want the crop canopy interfering with the falling of the liquid manure. But you string them out along your access road, you run the pivot over it, you see how much has been collected, and from there you can calculate your rate of application, but you can also look at the uniformity, how much there is in each one relative to the others. We include a rope that can be nicely used for determining the circumference of the wheel of the tractor when you're calibrating any type of applicator. And by counting a number of revolutions of the wheel then, you can determine the distance that you've gone. A short segment of the rope can be used to tie it around the wheel, and then each time that passes, you know it's 1 revolution of the wheel. In addition to this, we have a clipboard, a number of forms, forms for use in submitting samples where you can specify what you want from the lab, which analysis, how you would like the results reported, etc. And there are forms that can be used when calibrating your application equipment, forms to aid in the calculations that need to be done. And finally, there is a packet of laminated instructions. There are instructional materials such as NEB guides on sampling procedures, on what to request. There is an instructional form on the use of the EC meter, and there are, again, different instructional materials and guides to the calibration of equipment.